141.77. That's a time that just got run in the 800 meters. Not at the Olympics, not at a World Championships, not even at a major college meet. At a regional invitational in Kenya, against mostly runners you've never heard of. And yet, that time, right now, puts whoever ran it in the conversation with the elite runners who've spent their entire careers at the absolute peak of global athletics. When David Rudisha, the Olympic 800-meter champion, the guy who set the world record that stood for 8 years, heard what this teenager had just done, he made a public statement that shocked everyone in the East African running community. We will get to that. But first, you need to understand just how impossible this story actually is. Because 141.77 doesn't just put him in conversations with elite runners. It means this kid from a small town in Western Kenya just ran a time that would place him top 10 in the last Olympic final. Top 10 against the best middle distance runners currently alive. And he did it before most people in his own country knew his name. The question isn't whether Emmanuel Wanyonyi can run fast. He's already proven that. The question is, how did the system miss him for this long? And what happens when the world finally catches up?
Start in Kericho, not the postcard version, the actual place, a town in western Kenya where tea plantations roll across every valley and the air tastes green. About 30,000 people. Most kids there are already running before they ever think about track. Running to school, running to fetch water, running because that's how you get anywhere. Emmanuel was born in 2005. The exact date gets fuzzy. Rural Kenya wasn't keeping precise birth records back then. But that's not what matters. What matters is the world he came up in. Kenya was already a distance running factory. Olympic champions, world records, entire relay teams dominating every global competition. But Kericho wasn't part of that world. You wanted to find Kenya's next elite runner? You went to Eldoret. You went to the high-altitude training camps at 2,400 meters, where the air is thin and the system was built. You went to schools that had already produced nationals. Those were the places where coaches looked. That was the pipeline. Kericho was different. Tea plantations. Your parents worked in the fields, or they ran small shops, or they did construction. Running wasn't a career, it was transportation. It was how you got to work in the morning. Emmanuel's parents worked. His father in construction, his mother in small business. They weren't part of the athletic system. They didn't have connections to the federation. They didn't know about training camps. Nobody in his immediate family was an athlete at the elite level. He was just a kid in Kericho who could run fast. Emmanuel's parents weren't athletes. His father did construction work. His mother was in small business. Neither had connections to the federation. Neither knew about training camps or coaching networks. They were working people. They knew their son could run. What they didn't know was how to turn that into a pathway. But he could run. Even as a kid, he was different. Not the fastest by default, but efficient. You could see it in how he moved, economical, controlled, like he was born knowing how to conserve energy. His school noticed. When he got to secondary school, there was a track program. Not elite, just decent. Enough that he could develop. And that's when the federation people started showing up. They'd come to his school's track meets looking for talent. And they'd see what Emmanuel could do. The raw speed, the natural rhythm, the way he ran like someone who understood distance without being taught. The National Development Program had scouts. The Federation had coaches. The elite programs had pipelines. None of them showed up in Kericho looking for Emmanuel Wanyonyi. He ran in local meets, fast times, times that should have triggered some alert in the system. But the system wasn't watching. The system was watching Eldoret. The system was watching the high schools that were already producing national champions. The system had built a funnel, and it didn't include Kericho. When he got to secondary school, things changed slightly. His school had a running program, not elite, just decent. Enough that coaches from other programs started coming to his school's track meets, and they saw what Emmanuel could do. They saw the raw speed, the natural rhythm, the way he ran, economical, controlled, dangerous. Multiple programs made offers, training slots at national camps, invitations to coaching clinics, connections to coaches with international experience, the kinds of opportunities that are supposed to change your life. But offers and support are different things. He'd get invited to a training camp, 10 days of elite coaching. He'd show up, train hard, run well. Then the camp would end, and silence. The coaches would say, "We'll stay in touch," and wouldn't. The federation would have limited spots for ongoing support, and somehow those spots always went to other runners. He wasn't rejected with a letter. He was rejected with inaction.
Coaches would say they'd keep an eye on him, and then they wouldn't. Programs would make promises about resources, and then those resources would go to runners with better resumes, better family connections, better relationships with Federation officials. He was fast, but he wasn't the priority. He didn't have the pedigree. He wasn't from Eldoret. The message was clear. He wasn't good enough to prioritize. It wasn't personal. It was about numbers and resources. Kenya produces distance runners faster than the Federation can develop them. They pick the ones with the best resumes, the ones with connections, the ones from the established schools. Emmanuel was 16, fast, and from a town nobody was watching.
Here's what he did. He got a job, construction work in Kericho, early mornings, hard work. The money wasn't much, but it was enough to hire a coach, someone outside the Federation, a coach named Jeffrey Kipkurgat who wasn't connected to the national system, a coach who believed in Emmanuel because he'd seen him train, not because of connections or recruiting promises. Then, at 17, he made the bigger move. He left Kericho. He moved to the outskirts of Nairobi, Raptors Training Center, to train with Kipkurgat full-time, alone. He worked in the mornings at odd jobs to pay for training, construction, hauling, whatever paid. Then he'd train in the afternoons, before dawn sessions, evening runs, 6 days a week. No support staff, no altitude chamber, no sports psychologist, no physical therapist, no team of people managing every detail of his preparation. Just him and a coach, and the bet that he could outrun kids with every advantage you could buy. When other Kenyan teenagers his age were sleeping in comfortable Federation training centers, getting meals planned by nutritionists, getting ice baths and massage therapy, Emmanuel was working construction and running in the Nairobi heat. That detail right there is the whole story. I want to know something. In the comments, tell me this. Would you have made that choice? At 17, with no guarantee it was going to work out, would you have left everything to chase something the system told you wasn't worth chasing? Because Emmanuel did. And what happens next is the reason we're making this video. 2 years earlier, his personal best was 146.88. That's a solid time for a 16-year-old. The kind of time that gets you on regional teams, gets you noticed at your school, gets your parents proud at the track meet. Then 1 year of solo training, 1 year of construction work and afternoon sessions, 1 year of chasing it without the system backing him. He dropped nearly 5 seconds, 141.77. That's not gradual improvement. That's not steady progress. That's a quantum leap. The kind of drop you see when a runner goes from good for his age to genuinely elite. 141.77. Let that land. The last Olympic 800-meter final in Tokyo, 2021, the 8th place finisher ran 142.15. Think about what that means. That's the slowest person who made it to the final. The runner in 8th place at the Olympics against the best 800-meter runners currently alive. Emmanuel Wanyonyi's time of 141.77 would have beaten that 8th place finisher at the Olympics against the entire world. Not based on a projection, not based on a model, based on an actual time he has already run in a regional meet in Kenya that nobody was watching. Think about what that means. He's not 8th in Kenya. He's not 8th in East Africa. He's 8th in the world, and he's not even 19 years old yet.
Here's what's actually significant about this. Emmanuel Wanyonyi is the second fastest teenager in 800 meters history. Only Peter Elliott ever ran faster at this age. Elliott ran 141.73 in 1985, and Elliott went on to win Olympic medals multiple times. He became one of the elite distance runners of his generation. So when you're in the conversation with Peter Elliott, you're in a very specific conversation. But there's something else that matters more. Nobody from outside the Eldoret Federation system has ever run this fast at 19 without direct Federation backing. That's not a small detail. That's a fact that changes everything about how we understand talent in Kenya. It means the Federation wasn't finding all the elite runners in Kenya. It was finding the ones who fit the system. It was finding the ones with connections. It was missing everyone else who was just as fast. Emmanuel is proof that elite speed doesn't need the pipeline. It just needs a kid who won't quit. After that run, after the time hit the board and the stadium went quiet because people were trying to understand what had just happened, Emmanuel did something unexpected. He didn't celebrate publicly. He didn't make a post. He didn't call anyone to brag or prove a point. He got in a car and drove back to Kericho. It took hours. He drove through the night. He went home because home was where he needed to be.
He sat with his mother. They didn't talk much about the time. They just sat together. He had done what he said he would do. He had chased something the system told him wasn't worth chasing, and he had caught it. Later, when David Rudisha, the Olympic champion, the world record holder, finally spoke to him, Rudisha said something that surprised everyone. "You're going to shock the world." That wasn't hype, that wasn't motivation. That was a fact from someone who has been at the absolute top of this sport. Rudisha doesn't say things like that casually. He sees elite runners all the time, world-class runners, but he doesn't make predictions like this often. He saw something in Emmanuel Wanyonyi, something that told him this teenager was going to force the entire sport to pay attention. Los Angeles 2028 is just over a year away. Emmanuel Wanyonyi will be 22 years old, in his absolute physical prime, faster than he is now, stronger, more experienced, running in the American summer on a global stage. This is the moment that changes everything for him. The Olympics at home for the Americans, the stage where Rudisha's prediction either comes true or doesn't. Does he do what Rudisha predicted? Does he break 141 in the Olympic final? Does a 22-year-old who the system rejected 4 years ago end up standing on the podium? Drop your prediction in the comments and subscribe. Next week we're talking about the other teenage runners from his region who are about to reshape the middle distance game forever, because Emmanuel isn't alone. KENYAN is producing more.